hope he doesn't get the sickness.
My boy Kurt is a stay-at-home dad. Watching Disney movies he never had. His daughter digs through all the VHS, crushing the classics in a princess dress. Informed like Scuttle, Kurt's got your ticket, making it real like Jiminy Cricket. Most are off the Captain Hook, but if the Tweedledum, he'll be taking more shots than Bambi's mom. Leave him raised like Simba, or cracked like the beast dishes. He'll show you a whole new world. You won't need 3 wishes. Stay at home, Disney dad.
Pocahontas 2, another Disney sequel. I never talk about the previews on these VHS tapes before the feature presentations, but on this one there's an ad for Lady and the Tramp 2 starring Alyssa Milano, who explains the plot by saying, "It's a girl from the wrong side of the tracks and a boy from the right side of the tracks," and she says it in just the weirdest voice. I don't know what to say. Alyssa looks like she's been awake for about 4 days. You okay, girl? Who's the boss? Looks like sleep deprivation to me. Then they invite me to stay tuned after the feature presentation for a classic Disney short starring this guy. I will not be staying. Alright, Pocahontas 2. The guards are looking for John Smith. They want to arrest him for treason, but he outsmarts and outfights them all while cracking wise. He's immediately hanging from the bridge like Mustafa, and long live the king. Ratcliffe lets him fall to his death, and then Ratcliffe is in front of the king and queen, being all scar about it and explaining he did everything he could to save John Smith because they wanted him alive. Intro scene is over and we get a full-page graphic. Walt Disney Home Video presents. That's never a good sign. We change scenes and Pocahontas is in the snow with her family and her friends, and her collection of comedic relief characters, the raccoon and dog and hummingbird, are all back. Hooray. She drops a compass that belonged to John Smith that reminds her of John Smith, and she's sad because she heard John Smith is dead, but luckily Ratcliffe sent the hyenas to find the body to confirm the kill, and they don't because they're lazy, so hey, he might still be alive. Poke's gal pal tells her to move on and get back out there. She breaks into song, and I swear she's about to sing rhyme, and then I might find a man, but she swerves and sings, and then I might find out who I am, which is probably a better lyric. She climbs to the end of Pride Rock to finish the song and stares at her compass again. Song was, pretty good. I'm reminded how extensively they use the word savage in the first one and how outdated it already was in the first one, so it feels extremely outdated in this one and I'm a little uncomfortable, but I move on. The ship arrives and the English unload their wares. There's a misunderstanding and suddenly the First Nations folk and the English almost come to blows, but Pocahontas tries to settle the situation down, as does the new John Smith, whose name is John Rolfe. Yes, her old lover and new lover are both named John. At least she doesn't have to worry about calling out the wrong name. They want someone from the First Nation side to return with the English and meet the king to help progress the peace between the two sides. Pocahontas agrees, but is worried, so she goes back and talks to grandmother Willow. She says she's worried she might fail. Willow says, hey, the sky could turn to fire and her nose could fall off. What? I want that inspirational quote on one of those old 90s posters with the picture and the black matting and the white letters. Pocahontas says goodbye and gets on the boat. Gotta give Disney credit here. The animation of part 2 is pretty up to par with part 1. The tribe sends basically a spy with Pocahontas to make sure she does what she's supposed to. Y'all got some trust issues. Pocahontas is like the nicest, most morally intact person in all of Disney, but just can't trust her, so they send this beefy bodyguard. The raccoon and hummingbird are stowaways at this point, so someone messes up and they're using the raccoon like to mop the floor. Like the raccoon is on the end of a pole and someone is scrubbing the floor with the raccoon. PETA must love this movie. Pocahontas gets some flack, but John too comes to her aid. London appears in the distance and Pocahontas is at the front of the ship like Jack and Rose in Titanic. The people in London break into song, and it's a cross between Belle's Little Town and like the opening Whoville song from The Grinch, and now the animation seems like it's taken a step back. The townspeople seem to lack the realistic detail the main characters have. Everyone is dressed like the jester narrator from Hunchback. Ratcliffe makes his entrance. He and Pocahontas start right back up again. He wants the gold. She says there is no gold. John too tries to smooth the situation. John and Pocahontas ride in the carriage. Her First Nations bodyguard chooses to run behind instead, and the way they animate his run makes him look like a goofball. John too looks like he's a Three Musketeers cosplayer. They arrive at John's mansion. John talks to the king, and the king says he only wanted to talk to the chief, not some girl. Ratcliffe is there and says she could come to some party. And just like that, Jack from Steerage is invited to lunch with Rose and the rest of the folks in first class on the Titanic. John warns her that she will be eaten alive, and she begs him to help. Montage of Pocahontas and her bodyguard getting fitted for English clothes. Really funny part where she runs into a room wearing English underwear that is like full pants, sleeves, and a high neckline, covering more of her body than her usual regalia. But since she's technically in underwear, John the gentleman turns away until his maid comes and guides her out of his room. If that was supposed to be funny for that reason, they hit a home run there. She keeps trying on dresses, and there's a Beauty and the Beast vibe. Radcliffe hires a scoundrel to make sure nothing goes right at the party, and this guy in a black robe turns and stares right into the camera, breaking the fourth wall. And I don't know why, but I laughed really hard at that. Back at the mansion, Pocahontas makes her prom date entrance and descends down a staircase looking radiant. Kiss me beneath the milky light. They leave and the animals have tea. The hummingbird is drinking tea like a drinking bird. Money. They go to the ball and everyone is being introduced. John Rolfe and Princess Pocahontas. And everyone gasps. She's gorgeous. I guess everyone expected her. The king and queen are polite to Pocahontas. She butters up the king and he eats it up. When is John 1 going to kick in the door covered in seaweed, pour water out of his cowboy boot, and challenge John 2 to a duel already? I'm waiting. We have a continuity error as the Duke hands the bodyguard his jacket because jacket required. Then the Duke is wearing his jacket again and then he's not. Poke and a second John have their first dance. Partners change mid-song and she ends up dancing with Radcliffe, and that's kind of a cool moment. Okay, Duke has his jacket back. Then there's a play. Pocahontas looks nervous. Radcliffe joins in on the song. Is he part of the acting troupe? I don't know what's going on. Bodyguard has no jacket now, and now he does. My nose is bleeding. They keep singing. Things are not quite what they seem, and foreshadowing as the music continues. They hand her a bouquet of flowers. Then there's this horrible animation glitch where the flowers kind of stick and split. You have to see it. It's bizarre. It ends with a chained bear, and everyone is laughing at this poor bear. Pocahontas predictably stops the show to save the poor animal's torture. They call her a savage. She claims it's them who are the savages, and it's on. The bodyguard casually kicks everyone's ass. They drag Pocahontas off. John tries to stop the guards, but they threaten him with treason. Okay, now we're in a bar. A really cool animation angle with someone pouring a beer in the foreground while drunks argue in the background. It's kind of hard to explain. It looks cool. The drunks talk about what just transpired, and a cloaked man storms out on horseback. I'm going to assume that's John Smith, as he's the only missing character so far. Cloaked intruder jumps John 2, and then we have a fade to black. But what's this now? John 2 has the cloaked guy shackled and in a boat. The guards let him back into the castle with the prisoner, but the cloaked dude hops up and escapes. People's lives are on the line, but we get 45 seconds of the dog with a pot on its head running into things. Pocahontas is rescued by John Ralph and the cloaked man, who turns out to be, surprise, John Smith. 2 Johns? They trick the guards into going into the cell and slam, surprise suckers. There's a sword fight as they get the bodyguard and escape, as usual, Disney's animated fight scenes are top notch. The next day, Pocahontas is back in love with John Smith, but John Ralph is there as well. There's more Johns here than an outhouse convention. More Johns than a class they make you attend when you get arrested for picking up a prostitute, but it's really an undercover police officer, and then you're legally required to attend this all-day seminar. Thus, a lot of Johns would be in that class because John is a slang for someone who picks up prostitutes. Back home, Pocahontas is all done up in her fancy English dress. She sees her reflection, and her reflection, she's dressed like old school Pocahontas, and she realizes she's sold out. She decides to go back. John Smith tries to stop her. John Ralph supports her. And what is going on? They're switching Johns on me. Pocahontas returns to the king and queen, followed by John Ralph and her bodyguard. She tells the king there's no point going to war, and there's no gold. John Smith appears and says, Ratcliffe is a liar. It's too late. Ratcliffe is already rallying the troops, and they are going to attack Pocahontas' people. John Smith on horseback gets on the ship, and like when he butted into John Ralph's new relationship with Pocahontas, he's going to try to stop the seamen, which isn't going to work because there's a lot of angry men that work on that ship that are ready to fight back. The crew of Ratcliffe's ship gets the better of Smith, but Pocahontas and her bodyguard hop on and help out. The animation is once again jumping off my TV. They do fight scenes so great. Quick cuts. The ships hit each other, then one amazing shot where Pocahontas is in front of a giant English flag, and the lightning reveals Ratcliffe's silhouette on the other side, and he stabs through it with a sword. Man! Ratcliffe and Smith sword fight on a ship. This is all I want. Smith cracks wise and asks if Ratcliffe is trying to make a point because he tried to stab him. And like Pocahontas, I officially like the new John better than this guy. Ratcliffe pulls out a gun and puts the barrel right between his eyes. Goodness! But John Ralph saves him, and the Johns exchange compliments, and I am now hoping neither wins Pocahontas' heart and they end up with each other. That would be an impressive twist. The king says, no more lies, and arrests Ratcliffe. Pocahontas and John Ralph are saying goodbye. Smith busts in and is excited that he now has his own ship and he wants Pocahontas to come, but she says they already tried to walk the same path once Denied! Pocahontas says goodbye to her English friends. She's asking around for John Rolfe, who sadly slunk away after Smith blocked him. The ship pulls away in surprise. John was hiding in plain sight. Don't you have a duty to the king? I also have a duty to my heart. Come on, man. As they sail away, we learn the bear from the dinner party's okay. I mean, he's still got rope around his neck, but he's okay. They sail away like Enya, and Pocahontas and John Rolfe make out as we fade to black. That's it. Solid little sequel, and in the credits, Billy Zane was in this. See, I didn't imagine the constant Titanic vibe. I swear, Disney sequels get a bad rap. There's nothing wrong with this movie. The credit song is a duet sung by Billy Zane. I have not thought about Billy Zane in 20 years, and here we are. Billy Zane, everyone.
That's what I think about.
What do you think?
What we have is a concern about Curtis Anderson. His interviewing style is not the best. His personal appearance is not the best. I was wondering if the man has some kind of a hold over the channel that he's allowed to be employed for so long with the standards of journalism and personal appearance that he has. Thank you.
Okay, Macy. Yeah!